some depth, and he was going to provide it.
Depth. Testing, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good? Test. Okay.
Every year, I
Ready.
let the computer do it, and every year I've won.
All right.
All right, guys, thanks for coming out today. Coach, you want to start with the opening statement?
Let's go. It's game week. It's finally here. Opening statement. I would just say this. I feel like I've been here for a year and 7 months. I've been on the job for 7 months, but it's exciting to finally have game week here. You know, it's much anticipated. I tell our guys, you know, I'm used to having 4 preseason games to get ready for your opening game. So it's exciting. You know, everything we've done up to this point matters. You know, the time that our guys have put in during the winter workouts, training camp, and you know, we've had a good training camp to this point, and it's exciting to have game week finally here.
Yeah. Coach, a little bit off topic of the game per se, but there's been discipline problems at programs like Western Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame, even Ball State had a player suspended earlier this year. How do you weigh when you're figuring out discipline for a player between we need to win games and then what's ethically right for the program?
Well, never going to sacrifice, you know, selfish, trying to get a player on the field just to, you know, to try to get a win. You're never going to sacrifice the beliefs, the values that you put in place for your football team. And we have an accountability plan. We have a drug testing policy, and we will stick to those. And if it happens to be one of our better players that's disciplined, it is what it is. But it's too important, and you're trying to help not only with young men on the football field, but off the football field, trying to help mold them, help them become a better man. So we'll never compromise that. And I've tried to use those examples of those respective teams that have had some, you know, situations that have happened since training camp began. Let's not be one of those teams. You guys have put in too much work. You only have 11 or 12 opportunities now when you get to fall, and you know, we don't want to make a selfish decision on a weekend just to have a little bit of fun and it end up costing your football team and end up costing your university. So we try to reference those and just make sure we're not one of those teams.
Being a first-year coach here at Ball State, do you feel like you have to kind of take a harsher approach or emphasize that more just so everybody learns what Mike Neu is about?
Well, I think the guys on this football team know from the very first time I had an opportunity to meet with them how important attention to detail and if I ask you to do something and we put an accountability plan in place or a drug testing policy in place, it's going to be enforced no matter who you are. And if we're telling our players that being late for class is not acceptable, being late for treatment is not acceptable, being late to a meeting is not acceptable. We can't bend the rules, because if that happens one time, then it will be a snowball effect, and we just can't do that in order to get where we want to go. And I tell the guys all the time, I would never ask you to do something that I wouldn't expect from myself. So if a team meeting starts at 2:15, you better be in your seat by 2:15, because the door will be closed. I'll be in here by 2:10, but if we're going to get anywhere, if we're going to get where we want to go, little things matter. And taking pride in the little things, they add up over the course of time. And if we want to be successful, we want to get back to being the class of the MAC, those things have to add up.
All right, and back to football, your offensive line has a whole lot of brand new names to it. What have you seen from them in 3 weeks of training camp?
Well, that's fine, and we've lost some experience, yes, but those guys that have waited patiently, and some of them, their number may have been called a little bit faster than they were ready for, but that's part of it. That's part of preaching to those guys. When the opportunity presents itself, you must be ready, because there's no worse feeling that when your number's called and you're not ready. That's tough. So you preach to young guys, you're only a play away, you're only an injury away from being in that lineup. So our guys have worked hard. Coach DeVan has done a great job throughout training camp, throughout spring ball. Coach Armour, because a big part of a young player is the development in the weight room. You have to be physically strong enough to be able to stand, to be able to play 70, 80 plays throughout the course of a game. So he's done a great job with those guys. We know we have some young players, so we'll do our best job to put those guys in a position to have success on Friday night. We won't expose them, and we'll give them what they're ready to handle.
Coach, with Georgia State, I think they returned 4 offensive linemen,
Mm-hmm.
their top 4 rushers. They kind of do running back by committee there, and they also lose their quarterback. It's kind of a stud last year. Do you game plan with that in mind? Seems like a team that might focus on the run a
Well, you always do. You always game plan, and you look at every game, even though we don't have film from them this year. You know, their coaching staff, for the most part, is intact. Their offensive staff, their defensive staff is still there from a year ago. So we know they've lost their quarterback. There is an or next to the quarterback position. It could be this guy or this guy, and we know that. And we're prepared for both situations. We've studied a ton of film throughout the summer into training camp here. But most importantly, it's about us. On Friday night when we take that field, making sure we take the field and we play the way that we practice. We're going to go out there, limit our mistakes, play with passion, play with a ton of energy, overcome any adversity that presents itself on Friday night. And our guys are ready for that. They know that, and it's as much about us Friday night as it is about our opponent. So I got a ton of respect for Georgia State, having won their final 4 games last year. Coach Miles has done a great job. Yes, they return a lot of experience both offensively and defensively, and we know that. We know that they're a team that finished strong. They've got a lot of confidence. I'm sure they carried that into the offseason here. So we're going to face a very good opponent on Friday night.
With it being your first non-conference opponent, was it kind of nice to have that film in your back pocket from last season?
Well, you know, anything you can get your hands on. You study film from last year. You try to find clips from, you know, social media that would exist from training camp or winter workouts or anything that can give yourself an opportunity to gain some information and to get an edge in helping you with your preparation. But, you know, Georgia State is you know, for that program to be 6 years in existence now, they've done a tremendous job. You know, they play, you know, in the Georgia Dome, which reminds me of my days forget the Saints for a second, but at Tulane, you know, very similar type situation for a college team to play in a pro venue. So you got to be prepared for little things like there's going to be a ton of hash marks on the field. There's going to be 2 sets of numbers, so you kind of study that on the TV screen, make sure your players are prepared for that so they're not surprised when they get out there and go, where's the numbers, where's the hashes? So you try to educate them on what to expect when they get out there Friday night.
Have you had excitement from players just heading down to Georgia Dome?
Oh, I think everybody's, you know, just excited about, you know, of course, when you get an opportunity to play a game in a professional stadium like that is really cool. And yes, we got some guys from Atlanta, so it's a little bit sweeter for those guys to have an opportunity to go back home where they grew up playing high school football. Their families will be able to be there. So we're recruiting a lot of guys from that area. So it's an opportunity for us, not only on the field, but off the field for our players that are here to see their families and for recruits that are in that area to have a chance to see us play firsthand.
Coach, you don't have any true freshmen listed on the depth chart at all. Is it going to be an emphasis of yours to try to preserve them and redshirt them if at all possible, unless you're absolutely desperate to play a kid?
Well, I wouldn't say. I think it all depends on the maturity level of that young man. Is he mature enough to handle it? Is he physically ready to play? And can he make a contribution and not just be a guy that you have him listed 2 or 3 on the depth chart, and then you know obviously you have to work through those scenarios so that you don't put a young man out there and risk 2 or 3 plays and end up costing him a year, if you will. So we're going to play the guys that are ready to play and the guys that have performed in practice. So you know we anticipate playing some freshmen here. At some point, whether it happens to be Georgia State, we'll see. But we anticipate playing some freshmen in this class that have done a great job so far.
You've talked a lot over the last several months, and you talked about the game last night during your Wish TV debut about how much you like this senior class. What is it specifically you like about this group?
Well, this group of seniors, you can tell that they have a chip on their shoulder. They don't they reference it often when I have conversations with them that to see the seniors last year go out that way in that last game, to see the disappointment on their faces in the locker room. They have used that at several moments throughout camp, throughout the offseason. They don't want to be like that. They don't want that to happen to them because when you leave and you leave that field for the last time in college, those memories stick with you for the rest of your life. And you want it to be great memories and not be something like, ugh. And you got to make sure, you know, as in this class, I know just talking to these guys, watching the way they work, they want to go out the right way, and they're holding themselves accountable. They're holding their teammates accountable. And a lot of times when you don't have to say anything because you hear it outside of the locker room when you walk by, that's when you know you got the right group of guys. And I love the seniors because I can tell how important it is to them, and they want to go out the right way.
And Coach, I know you can't speak on specific verbal commits and recruiting and that sort of thing, but the general overall picture of recruiting, what have you learned? Because you were at Tulane, but you weren't at Tulane for a lot of years. So what's been different in this time that you've learned about recruiting?
Well, the big thing is social media continues to be a huge factor in recruiting, and we all have to be real with ourselves, knowing that these are young men. They are easily influenced. Yes, you try to pride yourself on recruiting character guys that if they give you their word, you want to be able to hold them accountable, but yet they're still young men. And they're easily influenced by the next coach that may have a conversation with them on the telephone, on social media, through a correspondence in the mail. So you got to just make sure that you stay after these kids. You have to plan your week accordingly, where you've given enough time to recruiting, where you're communicating with them, and staying in contact with not only them, their coaches, making sure you're paying attention to the kind of season they're having, because they like to know that you are totally aware of what's happening and not just saying, hey, good luck to you. You got to be in tune with what is going on in their life there, and that's a big part of recruiting. It is what it is. It's the social media has changed that. I've learned that because it's even from 3 years ago when I was at Tulane. It's definitely enhanced it even that much more. And we want to make sure there's a buzz out there about Ball State University, Ball State football, and that's a big deal to our recruits. And we try to get our players involved to promote our university as much as possible.
Have you sensed that there's a buzz with the new coaching staff and where this program's going?
Well, the honeymoon's over.
Okay. We'll find out on Friday.
Friday night is here, but there's been great feedback from the kids that we've recruited, from the coaches, not only in high school football in Indiana, but the surrounding states here. There's been a lot of excitement and encouragement, and people that have reached out to say they appreciate our efforts. And they know how bad we want to make a difference. Not only, we want as many local kids around this area as possible, but we want good young men that make a difference, not only on the football field, but the community, and help those guys become better men. And they know how important the graduation piece is to us as a staff and to our university.
Mike, you've got a go-to receiver in Mabon. Lacanera has played some football, and then that group behind them. What do you see from that group emerging as it relates to the total receiver?
Well, yes, you've talked about Kevon. Yes, you've talked about Corey Lacanera, but Jordan Hogue's had a great training camp here. I tell him every day I'm proud of the way he works. He makes plays each and every day. We've moved him around a lot. He's played the slot receiver position. He's played both to the field, to the boundary. So I've been very impressed with him. I've been very impressed with Devin Reese. Here's a young guy that's got good size, kind of played behind Kevon a little bit, but we've moved him around and expanded his role. And those guys could be on the field at any given time together, whether it's Kevon and Devin, or Jordan and Devin, or Jordan and Kevon. So, we're going to have quite a few guys out there on Friday night, but, we just continue to try to give them as many reps as possible. But those guys, Devin and Devin and Jordan have done a great job of, being consistent day in, day out in training camp, and I expect them to play a big role here.
Mike, from the standpoint of when you first got here and met Riley, his evolution, nice season last year as a freshman, but from when you first met him and saw film and all that on him, how much has he changed emotionally? Because this is, quarterbacks today seem to take on the mantle of, the team,
Right.
if you will. How has he handled, and how have you handled the relationship with him to this point? Where do you feel he is in evolving since you started?
Well, it's easy to recognize his talent. We all know that. You see his arm talent, you see the size, and it surprises you how well he's able to move for a big guy like that. But I've told our offensive staff, I've told Joey Lynch this, that my favorite part of practice, when we've had it throughout fall training camp, is we have periods in practice, whether it's a scrimmage or whether we just have a period where you're calling it at the end of practice and you're reacting to whatever situation presents itself. Well, I stand 15 yards behind him during the course of the practice, and I just kind of notice a little bit of a chip and a little bit of edge to him when those scrimmage periods and when those call-it periods present themselves in practice. And you love to see that, because for a young QB, the one thing normally happens is you want to just try to lead by example, be a hard worker. You're not very vocal. But I kind of see an edge about him during those time frames in practice, and I love that, because that's when you kind of see the swagger about him come out a little bit, for being kind of a quieter type of guy, for being a young player. So I love to see that come out of him during those time frames, and listen, he's a competitor. Make no mistake about it. Whether he's loud, vocal, or not, he is a competitor. And you can see that show up at those moments during practice.
Coach, did you do much recruiting in the free agent part of the NFL? Like, did free agents come in and meet with the position coaches and things of that, or was it strictly general manager and agent,
Yeah.
that sort of thing?
There would be, from time to time, when you would have a free agent visit or a pre-draft visit, then you would spend some time with the respective player. But the majority of the personnel work in the NFL was handled by our GM, head coach. As coaches, you were each given a select number of players that you had to evaluate off of film, write a report on those, and submit those to our general manager and to our head coach.
Coach, with this first game, regardless of the opponent, how important is it for you guys just to, I guess, kind of set a good tone, start off on the right foot, and the players have talked a lot about the energy that the new coaching staff brought in, kind of a lot of the last year, the rear view a little bit. So how important is this first game to kind of cement all of that?
Well, I think my message has always been to these guys, you play the way you practice. We have a saying around here, it's only on Saturday, but in this particular case, only on Friday in the game does practice really become worthwhile. And all the time, energy, focus that you put into practice. And if you preach practicing fast and you see guys flying around the field, that's who you are when you get to the game. If you are not practicing that way and you're practicing half speed, three-quarter speed, then that's what you can expect to see on Friday night, Saturday morning. So I've told our guys, I expect to see guys flying around the field when we have a change of possession. I expect the offense to be flying out there. I expect the defense to be flying out there. And let's set the tone that our opponent knows that's what they can expect from us. Yes, we want to play physical football. We want to limit our mistakes. But more importantly, let's overcome any adversity that presents itself, because in every game, whether you like it or not, adversity presents itself. We're going to move past that. We're going to continue to have each other's back on the sideline. One side of the ball might need a pick-me-up from the other. That's part of the playing the game of football, and that's what we're going to be about on Friday night, and I expect our guys to have that mindset from start to finish.
Other questions? All right, thanks, Coach.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. Great questions.